Ghanaian universities, for the first time since 1995, are on the brink of shutting down. University teachers say their standards of living in the country is worsening, and they are demanding a better pay as the strike continues to its fourth week. Now, statutes of public universities require that schools close down after 21 days of no academic work. In the following report, my colleague Justice Bediu speaks with some university teachers who have left the classrooms in search of what they say is a better job and what that means for tertiary education in the country.
There are days that every university student look forward to. Graduation day is one of those.
Today's my graduation shoot. Yeah, I'm excited.
Amanda Dankwa has just completed a degree in psychology at the University of Ghana.
I'm fulfilled that by the grace of God, I've been able to complete school.
In her time here, she remembers several days when teachers stayed out of the classroom on strike, fighting for better conditions of work.
Psychologically, you know that you're supposed to go to class, and interaction with the lecturers sort of helps to grasp some of the concepts. But because you have to do it on your own, you can't tell whether you're on the right track or not. It's just hard. It's just a struggle. Yes.
So let's just say I'm a model validation.
I have come to meet Dr. Suleimana Idisa. He came to the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, in 2016 to teach, and then to the University of Ghana.
My take home came to about, I would say less than 5,000 Ghana cedis. The incentive to stay here got smaller by the day, the more frustrations I faced within the system.
He had just earned his PhD in economics at the University of Missouri in Columbia, USA. 2 years after that, he left, went back to the US, and took a job as a banker.
At the time I was living Legon, I'm taking home less than $1,000 a month, which means I made a whole lot more money being a graduate student than working in Ghana as a full-time lecturer. I was spending like 1/3 of my income on fuel alone, not to talk about rent and everything else that comes with, you know, the stress of Accra living, right? Another friend of mine recently relocated to another institution from Legon, just on the basis of this kind of rising cost of living and standard income. Your money is not going up, but the cost of living is skyrocketing every day, and it's just terrible.
The issue of conditions of work for university teachers ran deeper. Over the past 2 years in the University of Ghana alone, around 20 lecturers have left their job for various reasons, key amongst them poor salaries. This is the University of Cape Coast, also one of the country's largest. Inside, I have come to meet Dr. Francis Ano. He trained at Cambridge University. Like some of his colleagues, he too has toyed with the idea of leaving the classroom.
I remember when I got my promotion in October 2019. When I opened it in the head of department's office, it was misfilling. Part of it, I was excited because, well, at least it showed that I had made some progress within the 3-4 years I had been there. But the part that made me a bit sad was the fact that I didn't really see any major improvement in my salary. And you ask yourself, you've done all this, taught this number of students, you've had to do research, publish a certain number of papers in certain reputable journals, only to see this.
Directors' salaries.
The Fair Wages and Salaries Commission have been the middlemen between government and university teachers. The commission insists lecturers have the best possible pay now. Elankra speaks for them.
It's unfortunate because at the end of the day, it looks as if the focus is on lecturers, when in actual fact, those who are really suffering are the students. But it is unfair to them because the employer, being government, is paying UTAC whatever is due them. Just this October, we concluded negotiations for conditions of service. I don't know any group or any person who sits down to negotiate conditions of service that will make them worse off. Even the single spine doesn't do that. The single spine frowns on any situation which makes anyone worse off. So it's fair to conclude that by the end of October, we came up with conditions of service that make them better off. Indeed, I can confidently tell you that the conditions of service that we signed off on in October were the best conditions ever for UTAC to date.
If we can pay people monies that reflect their worth a little bit, incentivize them to work harder, just make them more productive, make them happier. I think we can solve a lot of problems in this country that way.
We can't just give up yet. We believe that something will be done about our conditions of service so that we can all stay here and contribute towards the development of our country, because nobody will come to do it to improve the situation for us. We have to work to make things better.
I hope that the students will brace themselves towards the strike action, because they don't know when it's going to end, and they don't know how many strikes they are going to face in the coming years. So they should just brace themselves and study hard, and by the grace of God, they will finish.
1, 2, 3.
This strike may be called off, or maybe not, but the issues that underlie the seasonal strikes by university teachers remain and would always come back to haunt the country. Justice Baidu, Joy News, Accra.
Oh my God!
Well, let's now take a look at the situation in Cape Coast.
Here on the campus of the University of Cape Coast, the campus is completely deserted. Most of the students have left and they are home now. Others are contemplating leaving because they are doing virtually nothing on campus. Most of them complain that they are gradually exhausting their full staff, and they fear that if they do not go home, they might completely spend every money that was given to them by their parent. For the university management, what they have done is to open the university's main library very early. The departmental library and the hall libraries have also been open. Some of the students have been utilizing this opportunity. They've been going there to read. Others are also exploring the option of forming groups. So others have actually formed groups, and they have sought the assistance of some of their seniors to assist them in going through some of the materials they will be using during this semester. For the freshmen and women on campus, their wish was that they would have tasted lecturing by now, because they have been saddled, or they have been accustomed to teaching in the senior high schools, but that hasn't been the case. They are frustrated, they are dejected, they are like a flock of sheep without a shepherd, and they do not know what to do.
We are begging, we are pleading. It's not easy for us here. Yeah, so that's what I can say.
The campus is deserted. A lot of your guys are going home. Yes. Some have not even come at all. Yes. I mean, what are you contemplating doing?
Currently, we are forming a group studies. Yeah. We biomedical science students, we have a group study section in the group. So every day out, we try to meet 2 hours or 3 hours. We start maybe the courses that we are studying, so that we took some slide for our seniors. Then they will teach us small, showing 1 or 2 things, so that you have to do before the lecturer will come and teach us. Yeah, so we're hoping that we catch up with some small things, so that the lectures come, everything flow.
As I'm speaking to you, day in, day out, we are spending, and you came with a budget. Your parents have planned that this is a period that you are supposed to stay on campus, and this is the money that you are expected to use. And as now, nothing is going on. We are spending, and it is actually affecting us. So with time, if the strike is not coming to an end, we'll surely go home.
Welcome to another brand new week. We start the second month of 2022 tomorrow, and government cannot wait any longer in pushing the controversial e-levy bill through Parliament. Time is running out, and government needs to quickly get the policy implemented to be able to raise the targeted $6.9 billion revenue. So far, it has been the source of controversy in Parliament, which at some point led to fisticuffs. The situation remains unchanged, with the majority and minority sides stuck to their position. Johnson Asiedu Nketia is in the studio with us this afternoon. He's the NDC's General Secretary, whose members of Parliament are opposing the policy in the House. We'll also give you a breakdown of how you will be affected as an individual if the e-levy comes into force. So let's get to the streets of Accra and listen to what some persons have to say about this bill.
I don't accept it because they already take charges from us. So why do we have to pay another e-levy? Because right now you are buying something, the person even demands you add an extra charge to it. So I don't see it to be necessary to. They should just forget about the e-levy, and they can still add the taxes on the things we buy. That would be best, because now holding cash, the Momo is so smooth and simple. So I think if they want the Momo to sustain and to be in the system and be effective, they shouldn't do the e-levy.
For me, I don't accept, because paying the e-levy and then coming to pay the charges also on the money by the communication network also is a whole lot. Because how much are we even earning as individuals? Most of us are not employed, and what you are earning is not that much to even sustain you. Okay, so all these charges are going to reduce your money, and then even your budget will also be I don't know. It's going to cause a lot of problems for us. So for me, I really don't accept, because these communications are already charging, and you're coming to add e-levy. It's going to add a lot of pressure on us in our finances.
No, I don't accept that. Like, you can't tax me on my personal money. If you are not getting money from the World Bank, doesn't mean like you should come pay, like you should pay tax through our mobile money. You can't expect someone like Ekayayo at the roadside to be paying e-levy, like such huge amount of e-levy. Like, how much is she even getting from her everyday works? How much is she even getting for you to deduct such amount from her? Do you understand? And not only the Kayayo, we have more people using the mobile money, which is quite comfortable for them, because some people even take their salaries through mobile money. So if you put this e-levy on, how much are they going to withdraw from their wallets? How much are they going to be paid? Some people are paid 200 cedis per month. And then when they receive that amount, how much are they going to withdraw from their mobile money?
Also, let's now hear from Dr. Abdallah Ali Nacha, who's warning of dire consequences for Ghana's quest to digitalize the economy and potential challenges for youth employment should the 1.75% tax be passed in its current form. He spoke on the matter at a Rotary Club meeting.
We still are the shining star, the black star of Africa. Why can't we take it easy and try to make sure we have addressed the unintended consequences and be able to get a sustainable tax system to be able to bring in the revenue? So as I mentioned, some of the implementation challenges, identification of the taxpayer, monitoring the threshold of transfers that have been made. So that if I make 100, what I give my daughter 100, go and make it with this agent, you two go and do 100 with that agent. How do we know it's from the same taxpayer and he has crossed the threshold? If 5 people go and make the transfers for me in their names. The collection mechanism of the tax and record keeping for tax audit purposes. Once it is a tax, it would be done. What records are we looking at? How are we going to monitor and do the audit to find out whether what is actually due us has been brought to us as government? We still have those challenges with communication service tax until the appointment of other third-party monitors to come and help us to monitor the filing of returns on communication service tax, among others. Then also the scope of the exemptions, the 100 a day, there are proposals whether it can be raised, and also the category of exemptions, person to person, agent to agent. Can we look at other areas where they need to be relieved. As mobile money agents, service providers, and users of fintech companies, we have retailers, aggregators. So if we are taxing mobile money transactions, some proponents are of the view that is it not going to discourage more involvement? And in that case, what happens to those employed in that sector if the volumes should reduce? We've given the example of what happened in Uganda within a month, a quarter drop in mobile money transactions, and they had to reduce the rate from 1% to 0.5%. So,
well, let's now bring you the breakdown of how this will impact you. Isaac Kofi is with Joy Research Desk. He provides us with some understanding to what's happening now. Isaac, we know government's position on this matter. Government says that they would be imposing the charges on transactions that exceed 100 Ghana cedis. But give us a breakdown of what this would mean to the individual.
All right, Blessed. So the research desk, we've taken time to crunch these numbers. We are looking at the various dynamics to this e-levy. So assuming we are taxing the value added on transaction, what is there to hold for, those transacting this huge sum of money? So let's start with the 100 cedis worth of transaction. And you know that e-levy is not applicable here. It means that the old rate, so e-levy at 1.75 with a service charge of 1% on a service charge of 1%. So if you transact an amount of 100 cedis, it means you'll be paying 1 cedi as a service charge, no e-levy. So the total cost to the sender will be 101 cedis. Now, moving away from 100 cedis, let's move to 200 cedis. If you are transferring an amount of 200 cedis, the 1% service charge will amount to 2 cedis. E-levy is applicable here, Blessed. That will be 1 cedi 75 pesos. And if you add this, the total charge accrued will be 3 cedis 75 pesos. And the total cost to the sender will be 203 cedis 75 pesos. Now this follows suit. Now let me move to the next slide. This is when e-levy is at 1.75%, but telcos have agreed to reduce their charge from 1% to 0.75%.
And you are saying this, giving the context that some of the telcos have promised that they would be doing a slash on the profits they make from the transactions.
Exactly. So let's look at that scenario. So let me start with 200 cedis. So when you are transacting an amount of 200 cedis, the service charge will be 1 cedi 50 pesos. E-levy is applicable here, 1 cedi 75 pesos. This will give you a total charge of 3 cedis 25 pesos, and the total cost to the sender will be 203 cedis 25 pesos. Now let's take a look at this. Let's just do 200 cedis. When the service charge was at 1%, the cost to the sender was 203 cedis 75 pesos. But just look at this. When it is reduced to 0.75, the cost to the sender now reduces from what we saw earlier to 203 cedis 25 pesos.
So what this means is that there's some sort of a marginal decline.
Exactly.
If the telcos agree to share the burden with those who will be doing business on the platform.
Absolutely. So now, let's look at the next slide, which talks about e-levy at 1.75. This is when, let's assume government agrees to purge the e-levy at 1.5%, and telcos still, charge their 1%. Let's look at the scenario. Assuming I'm transacting an amount of 500 cedis, the charge on it for a service charge will be 5 cedis, and the e-levy is applicable where that will be 6 cedis. The two combined will give us a total charge of 12 cedis 50 pesos, and the total cost to the sender will be 512 cedis 50 pesos. 512 cedis 50 pesos. That's when, if you add the service charge and the charge being accrued by e-levy.
Well, Isaac Kofi, I'm grateful for providing that context to us. But in studio with us now is the General Secretary of the Opposition National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asiedu Nketia. His members in Parliament have been resisting the policy. We come to him right after the short break. Stay with us. And you're welcome back to The Pulse with me, Blessed Oga. Joining us now is General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asidu Nketia. It's such a pleasure, sir, to have you in our studios. Good afternoon and welcome.
Pleasure.
We've been monitoring events in Parliament. We know that the NDC is unwavering in your decision to oppose the controversial electronic transactions levy. You say that you side with the Ghanaian people and that the tax will bring more burdens onto the citizens. But government is equally warning of an imminent shutdown of the economy if no step is taken to shore up revenue. So what's the priority now for the NDC? Averting an imminent collapse of the Ghanaian economy, or perhaps siding with the Ghanaians who would still be at the receiving end if the economy fails?
Thank you very much. We believe that how the economy is being managed or mismanaged, whether e-levy is passed or not, it will not take us out of the trench. So in management, business management, there is a point in time where you decide to take certain actions to cut your losses. So we have come to a point where, as a country, we need to begin to face the realities of our economic situation and take the right, medication that will heal the economy. So it's not about e-levy, raking in 6 billion or thereabout. We have a problem that we need to confront in a very major and comprehensive manner.
And your concern as a party is that we need to correct the failing Ghanaian economy. Some members of your party have been putting out what they believe is a solution. For instance, Dr. Ato Kesil in Parliament has talked about the fact that we need to consider going back to the IMF austerity measures. Is that an appropriate solution for the problem that we're facing?
Well, I'm not an expert in economics, but I believe when things are wrong, I can see them. Let's ask ourselves. Government is saying that they cannot access the international financial market. The bond market is no longer,
favorable to them,
receptive to our demands. They cannot go for loans. Nobody wants to lend money to us. You ask us as an ordinary person, then what went wrong? Because in 2017, they were going to the bonds market. It was favorable. Everybody wanted to lend to Ghana. And you have managed this economy for the past 5.5 years or whatever, 5 years or 4.5 years. So you ask yourself, what actually went wrong? Such that now everybody is saying that it is too risky to lend to Ghana, and yet you are telling us that the economy is resilient, the economy is this, the economy is that. So we think that it is not just about the e-levy that will solve the problem. If about 50 billion you are already collecting in other taxes is not able to solve the unemployment problem and the other things you are talking about, I can't see how 6 billion will be the solution, the magic wand that suddenly we have discovered, which will solve all our problems. They still are not being forthright. They are economical with the truth about the real nature of our economy.
Even if they are being economical with the situation, we still need a solution. I'm asking whether you believe the IMF approach is the best. And government says, well, the approach we want to adopt is to rake in more revenue, generate more revenue internally so that we could sustain the funds that we rake in internally. Why do you seem to doubt the ability of government to manage properly what could be raised within the country?
Because it is crystal clear that they have not been able to manage 50 billion, 60 billion well. Why should I believe that they will be able to manage 6 billion? So that is the point. And the 6 billion is coming to add to the 60 billion, which they are mismanaging already. So there is no reason to believe that when you bring in e-levy, then suddenly there is some magic.
But the 50 billion, I'm sorry, but the 50 billion will be water under the bridge, isn't it? Because it's gone, it's past. The government is facing an imminent collapse in terms of the economy if nothing is done. The solution is what we're looking for, and it appears that you're stampeding them, you're sort of preventing them from achieving the aim they want to achieve.
That you see,
right?
If you are considering the 50 billion that is gone and passed, so we should forget about it and go in for more so that it will also go under the bridge and waste, then you are not managing the economy. Let us find out why the 60 billion is going under the bridge and yet we are not seeing the results. The solution is not to add 6 billion more. So if you know that the 60 billion has gone waste, then we must stop and ask ourselves the difficult questions. How do we stop this? The solution is not to add more, because it's like you are in a trench and you want to come out of the trench by digging. If you are digging, you'll be sinking further and further. You are not coming out of the trench.
But if you look at the situation we face now, there will be a need for us to move forward. And there seems to be a deadlock on this issue. For you, as a political party, how do you feel we could address this situation? What's the alternative? And I guess that's the question that has been posed to the NDC all through this conversation. What is the NDC alternative to the e-levy?
The alternative is to stop the waste. Cut the expenditure.
But
and there are places...
It's not a 9-day wonder. That will not just happen all of a sudden. If you look at the reasons accounting for the wastage, you considerably believe that it will take some time for government to address that.
You have a budget now. The problem they are facing is that there is some gap between the revenue expectation and the expenditure. So if you cannot bring in enough revenues to support your projected expenditure, what do you do if you want to balance? And then there is a problem bringing in more revenue. You cut the expenditure proposals, and then you get a budget that is balanced. And we say that there are areas where you can even cut. You see, you are telling us that there is hardship in the country, and for which reason everybody must sacrifice. The tax, the levy you are imposing, it is not tax on any value anybody has created. It is not service tax or tax on any service that has been rendered. You just are taking money from people's pocket because you have the power as government. And we are saying that if we have come to that situation, then let us look at your own expenditure. Look at the budget that is projected for government machinery. There are a lot of things that can be cut there.
But the reasons you give...
And then again, if I am your sponsor, I give you money to go and, to go shopping. You come back, I say, account for me, let me know how you spent ABC. And you say, I am powerful, I'm not accounting to anybody. Why do you expect that we should give you more money?
We'll touch on the issue of accountability.
but that's the core issue now.
Obviously, we'll get into that. But the reason for which government says it is imposing this e-levy, as you're saying, it's been done in a manner because government feels it has the executive power to deal with the situation and they want to tax citizens. But that's not entirely the argument that government puts on the table. They talk about tax inclusiveness, the fact that if you look at the structure of our economy, it appears that less than 3% of formal sector workers are the ones shoring up government's expenditure in terms of the taxes they pay. So that's not fair. How about widening the tax net to have more Ghanaians pay their taxes, and then we could make progress?
Nobody is begrudging government about widening of tax net. But you look at what is possible and what is not. You cannot squeeze water from stones. It is not going to happen. So that is why they are put there as to run this country. They must think through the options. And what brought us here, they know. We began from 2017, when they began on the road that will lead us to where we are now. We kept cautioning them. If you do this, this is what will happen. If you do this, this is what will happen. They say, we have the power, we can do it. And so we are here by choice. It is not by accident that we are where we are now, where the highest expenditure in our budget is payment interest on loans and salaries and all that. Because when we were beginning, the 2017, when they were beginning, the first thing they did was to go for Eurobond at a rate that we felt was not good enough, because they could have gotten the money at a much lower rate. They disagreed and they proceeded. And so if you are you are offering a rate that is higher than what you could have gotten elsewhere, and you pursue that, why are you surprised that now you are encumbered with interest payments which are not sustainable? We told them. They never agreed. When they started appointing left, right, center, increasing number of ministers and all that, we told them that all these come with cost. They say, oh, the job is big. The country has been run down, so we need many, many people to run the show. We ended up with about 1,000, presidential staffers. We ended up with several appointees doing the work of chief directors all around, when you are paying chief directors and all that. And so the results is that you have to take these salaries, emoluments, and pay your interest rates before, if there is anything left, you go and talk about development. But mind you, the loans you are bringing in, if they are not going to be invested to generate wealth, then repayment will certainly become a challenge. It will only take time for you to be challenged with the repayment. So we warned them about all these things. They never listened. And so we are here not by chance. We are here by the choice of President Akufo-Addo and his government.
One of the key platforms on which you could hold government accountable is Parliament.
Yes.
You are a member of the Parliamentary Service Board as well. You've been monitoring developments in Parliament. Yes. There seems to be a deadlock. How is that? What's your impression of what's happening in Parliament now? And in fact, there are warnings, even from your side as well. I've heard Alhaji Mubarak say
it's good for
that they cannot guarantee if we won't see fisticuffs in Parliament again. So what's your impression of what all that's happening in Parliament?
I think that what is happening in Parliament is good. Because you see, I participated in writing the Constitution, and we put in there that everybody, every citizen must fight and protect the Constitution with all your mind, with all your heart, and with everything. So at any point in time, whether it takes fisticuffs to defend the Constitution, so be it. Fighting may not be good, but it is worse to sit down unconcerned and allow the Constitution.
You are a Democrat. You are a Democrat. You would not endorse what's happening in Parliament and the pictures that you can see on the screens right now.
So Democrats sit down when wrong things are being done, when there are no other options. Has anybody suggested, for instance, to us that where you have a speaker who the Constitution denies a vote while sitting, decides that in spite of what has been provided in the Constitution, I am going to have a vote and then influence a decision.
But that's besides the point. You are a Democrat. Johnson Asiedu Nketia, are you endorsing what it is that we see in Parliament?
They have no option. They have no option.
So you're endorsing what?
Yes, I'm endorsing. Yes,
you're endorsing violence?
Fully. Not violence. This is preventing. Look,
but this is violence.
If we are going to,
there's no way around this.
When the police are arresting a criminal,
that when the police, in Parliament.
When the police are arresting a criminal, don't they apply violence? They do.
But they call that reasonable force, isn't it?
This is reasonable force. This is to prevent the abuse of the Constitution. You have it in there, black and white, in the Constitution, that when you are presiding over Parliament, you don't have a vote.
Bruising the likes of the sports minister, that's reasonable force?
I think that these are all...
you are a member of the board, and that's why I'm asking you. Because
no, it's not about membership of a board.
You have a critical role to play in the development of the House. What we see now, are you justifying this?
Right. Can I explain something? What happens on the floor of Parliament has nothing to do with Parliamentary Service Board. I have been a member of Parliament for 12 years. And I'm speaking from my experience. And I'm saying that when you come to a point where there is no other option to prevent the abuse of the Constitution, and you need to use this type of activity to make sure that the Constitution is respected, I will endorse it. Because those who are condemning this, has anybody put forward any suggestion that could have prevented the deputy speaker from presiding and also casting a vote against the constitution? If anybody presents any solution like that, I'll go for it. But so far, nobody. All our lawyers that we have, because the problem is that
solution
when you are there,
right,
when you are there and you allow this type of voting to happen, it becomes law.
And here's the problem.
It becomes law, and there is no court that will change.
But here's the problem, Mr. Nkitia. The concern is about the role of the speaker. And the speaker, you may run away from the fact that, well, the Parliamentary Service Board has no role to play, but you are the General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress.
Yes.
You, some way, somehow, have, some good relations with the Speaker of Parliament. He's been blamed for being part of the situation that we see today. The Speaker has not been constant anytime the consideration of the bill is being heard on the floor of the House.
There is warped thinking about...
Should we absolve the Speaker from all of this? Because you are calling for a solution to what's happening.
Absolutely nothing. There are people who are reneging on their responsibility and they want a scapegoat. So they get out there blaming Speaker, blaming minority, blaming everybody apart from they themselves. Just let's follow this.
So you feel that the Speaker should be off the focus?
Completely, because the Speaker is not the one who does the work.
The majority issued a statement some days ago indicating that the continuous absence of the Speaker is what's accounting for what we see.
No, they don't know what they are talking about.
Well, so how consistent is that with your comments on the eve of this Parliament? And let me just refer you, pardon me, let me refer you to your own statement. You were talking about Professor Aaron Michael Quay on the eve of the 7th Parliament entering into the 8th.
Yes.
You said, and I'm just quoting your words to you, we don't need a Speaker who you have to carry into his car and out of his car. Let's be serious. We don't need a Speaker who always needs an ambulance. You were referring to Aaron Michael Quay then. Do you regret your statements then?
Why? Why should I regret?
Don't you feel that it's the same standards that we have now?
Let's approach this discussion in a very structured manner.
Because the majority... Yes, the Speaker is a problem, isn't it?
It's not a problem. And you are asking a question as to whether we should blame Speaker.
Right.
I'm trying to explain to you that we cannot blame Speaker. Then you jump to some other places quoting statements.
Well, I'm quoting your exact words. These were your exact words.
If you are not interested in answers...
You said we need a good...
If you are not interested in answers and you are interested in just questions, I'll fold my hands, listen to your questions. We get to the end of the program.
Okay, so let's hear you out.
So if you ask a question, you should be patient to understand. I'm saying that those statements that the majority are issuing, they are born out of mischief or they are born out of ignorance. Because, look, you say you have 138 members of Parliament, which makes you majority. What happens in Parliament? How does Parliament take decision? Parliament takes decision by majority vote. So if you cannot approve anything with your 138, why do you come and blame somebody who is holding 137, for instance? Again, the Speaker came, he was available all this week. It has been announced that the e-levy will be taken on the 25th of February. Speaker was in the House from 25th to 29th or so. What were they doing? And if the Speaker has to leave because of a medical situation, you are now blaming him when he was here, you have your 136 here, and so on. The truth of the matter is that the MPs themselves, they don't think that the e-levy is a good thing. And so that is why their leadership is not able to get all the 138. Well, so they should not put the blame on anybody.
They also think otherwise. Their leadership is accusing you and some other...
And say, does it make sense? Listen,
they claim that you're controlling your MPs in Parliament.
I am saying
that's why we're having what
I can only... Even if it is true, I can only control 137. But the 138, if they vote, it will get the thing passed. So why are you blaming 137 when you have 138 to pass? In fact, if the thing turns around and we in 137, do you know that we cannot defeat them on anything they come together as 138? We can only cast only 137, you understand? And they have the majority. So you have majority leader. But why are you not explaining why you cannot get your 138 to pass anything you want to pass? And you are taking interest in blaming people who are 137. That is what they are trying to hide. They are not being truthful to themselves. They don't believe in the e-levy, and because of that, they are not able to garner all their 138 people to vote. That is the bottom line. They should not blame Mr. Speaker. The Speaker is not to do their work. The Speaker is not there to do government business. The Speaker is there as an umpire.
But he's a public servant.
Yes, but he's not there just to facilitate government business.
To do what,
he's there to make sure that Parliament takes decisions that the representatives of the people want to take. So the Speaker cannot be partial. So don't blame him. I heard a statement from one of the deputy speakers that no, we cannot rely on Speaker Bagben, so we must see how we can utilize our one. Is the realization now dawning on them? Because they have been living under the pampered leadership of Michael Kwe. That when even things are wrong, they say because of government interest, let us twist things and get it through. Bagben will not allow that, even to twist it in favor of NDC.
So that shows that the Speaker, the role of the Speaker is crucial. The last incident that we saw in Parliament was because the first Deputy Speaker had wanted to vote. He claimed that he had a casting right, and that's why he was attempting to vote. He denies the report anyway. But what the point is now is that don't you feel, as a means of ending this deadlock, we need the Speaker of the House, Alban Bagben?
You don't. Nobody should listen. Did the Speaker wish the sickness unto himself? The answer is no. Everybody, everyone in their parliament, their side of parliament, they fall sick and they go out for treatment. So it is very, very, heartless to be blaming somebody who has had to go outside for medical treatment as if you are blaming the victim. You know, Bagben did not wish that sickness unto himself. So if you are blaming him, you are either saying that Bagben wished the sickness unto himself, and for which reason he has to go, or Bagben is not sick, but he's just playing pranks. And so there is that can be verified. If indeed you think that Bagben is not sick, or you think that he's moving, going out there not because of medical treatment and for something else, some political game and all that they are accusing. Right. These are things that you can verify. You understand? But I'm telling you, if I were Bagben, I would do exactly what he's doing. Because look, those of you who are pushing your e-levy, if you are not prepared enough to sacrifice to make sure that your e-levy passes when the Speaker is sitting, don't come and blame the Speaker when he has to go out on notice that he has to go and do A, B, C. Whilst he's here, what have you been doing? So the blame is squarely on them. So their leadership and the leadership in government might realize that they are not enjoying the support of their so-called majority in parliament. The earlier they realize it and adopted a strategy to suit that one, the better it will be for them. This blame game that NDC or Bagben or this thing, it's neither here nor there.
Well, let me take you once more on the issue of the Speaker. And I was referring you earlier to your comment.
Yes, let's come
what
to
you
comment.
said.
Yes,
your very comment. You were speaking about Professor Aaron Michael Kwe.
Yes.
You said we needed a serious Speaker of Parliament, because you don't need a Speaker who would have to carry into Parliament and out of Parliament. You were obviously talking about his health condition.
Yes, I was.
That was not something he brought upon himself.
But I'm saying that.
So here we have a similar situation where Bagben is finding himself in that same spot.
Yes. Where you are missing the point is that one is in that situation and you are going to take a decision whether that is what you want as against other people. In the second situation, the person is there unexpectedly, nobody knows what is happening, and then he fell into that situation. There are two different conditions at all. If you have to choose a chief in a can scenario, when you have a chief who suffers one form of disability or deformity, maybe one eye lost or a hand amputated and so on, they won't choose you as a chief. But it's a different thing when you are a chief and you go on battle and you lose a hand, nobody distools you. So there are different scenarios which we are trying to...
But what's even more dire is that if you look at the personality of Alban Kingsford Bagbin, this is one of the, by far, the longest serving members of parliament we've ever had in the history. He comes with some experience, he comes with some level of expertise in how to avert this deadlock that we're seeing in parliament today. Why is he not bringing that skill to the fore, to call all involved,
He's displaying
so we could avoid
all
what
those
we're seeing?
skills. You have a majority that thinks that are living in their past glories. They still think that they control majority of votes in the House. That's why they earn the name majority. You say, well, if you have 137, we have 137 with independent, and you say you are appropriating the independent candidate to call yourself a majority, that's good. Go ahead with it. And you see, they begged us to allow them to have first deputy speaker after Bagbin had been elected. Then we say, why? They say, oh, we are going to be in government. The first deputy speaker will be chairing appointments committees and so on. So in Africa, if you get your opponent vetting your appointees and so on, it could create a deadlock in our governance and so on. We say, okay, have your first deputy speaker. But we have the second deputy speaker. They went around, came back and said, oh, even the second deputy speaker, if it is given to the independent candidate who is not NDC, not NPP, then we have shared the positions. One independent, one NDC, one this. Then I told them that what you are going in for, you cannot carry the load you are going. I told them right at the time they were demanding this. But they kept pressing to a point where my side also felt that, well, it won't hurt anybody, so let's go ahead. That is what is hurting them now. Now the hens have come home to roost. If the second deputy speaker or first deputy speaker were to be from NDC side, in the absence of Bagbin, an NDC speaker can chair. If that NDC speaker is chairing, then NDC votes will come to 136. What is it that you want to pass which you cannot pass? But you want to eat your cake and have it. You want the positions and the power that it carries for yourself. But the responsibility of denying the presiding officer the vote, you don't want it. And so therefore, you want to be the umpire, the referee, you award penalty, and you say you are going to kick it. You go and kick, and then you whistle.
So you feel this is self-inflicted?
It's self-inflicted. So they... when the first deputy speaker was saying that, oh, we should find out ways of doing this so that our party interests can go forward and so on, the best way for his party interest to go forward, if he cares enough to sacrifice, is for him to resign. Let them put an NDC deputy speaker there, and then anytime that deputy speaker is presiding, you have 136 on the side of NDC. You have your 138. You can move. You can vote. So
let's start.
But if he wants to insist on voting, then he cannot preside. And if he cannot preside, and then their solution is perhaps to demand that if Bagbin is not well, he shouldn't go for treatment. He should remain here and die or whatever. I don't know. What they are saying doesn't, to say the least, it doesn't convince anybody.
So let me take your thoughts on this. You as a political party, you claim you're on the side of the Ghanaian people. The Constitution believes that the ultimate destiny or whatever it is, decisions that we make should ultimately be made by the Ghanaian people. You have an opportunity in the next general elections to make a case for why you believe you need to form the next government. One of the means by which this government could become unpopular is the controversial e-levy bill, which they are seeking to push through Parliament. Why are you not allowing the government to go ahead to implement an unpopular policy if your aim is to correct the wrongs which you believe they are pushing through?
Our interest is not about winning the next election.
You're not interested in winning the 2024 elections?
It is an interest. But I'm saying that our main interest should not be about winning election. It should be about saving the economy of this country.
That you want to win the next elections, don't you?
I'm saying that if I have a choice between winning elections and then making sure that we have a buoyant economy, I'll choose the buoyant economy.
So in other words, you choose the e-levy over the 2024 elections?
It's not about that, but I'm saying that you have priorities. Our priority as at now is not about winning elections. They have that priority of winning. That is how come immediately they were sworn in, they started talking about breaking the 8 and so on. So they are not worried about how to build the economy, to improve the living standards in the country. All they care for is that what will make us win elections. And if you run the country on that basis, you will run aground the way they have run aground. So I'm saying that if something is hurting the economy and we have a way of pulling the brakes, otherwise it will collapse the economy. We have to pull the brakes. We won't sit there to say that, oh, let's allow this unpopular thing so that it will bring them down and so on. We have come to a point where we have to, remove the veil on our faces and then live with the reality we have created ourselves. You know that there are indications that we are going to be downgraded again. Our economy is going to be credit worthiness and so on. We are going to be downgraded. Why are we here? When you took over, everybody wants to give you money. And we say that taking credit or bond is not free money. If you are taking it today and we are warning you that you have to be responsible about your approach, and you don't listen, you come to where we are when nobody gives you money. Because, there is a country risk associated with every country. So if you are going to borrow money or you are selling bonds and so on, the rate you get depends upon the strength of your economy. So if your economy is weak and you want to sell your bonds, the bonds must be priced so high, consistent with the risks, the risks of default. So when we started and the bond prices started moving up, we were warning that, look, where we are going, we are overborrowing. We will come to a point where nobody will want to buy our bonds because they will do assessment and see that our total wealth cannot pay our indebtedness. So now if you are selling, nobody will buy. So let us stop it. They say no. When they go on the road show, they say that our bond is oversubscribed. They come and do KK parties and celebrate and so on. That is where we are now. That is why, because the higher the risks, the higher the interest. And so if the interest is that high, you come to a point where there will be accumulation which cannot be paid. More so when the money you are bringing is not going into investment to generate wealth, to enable the citizens repay. You come to a point you cannot sell any more bonds. Citizens don't have money to afford the taxes.
And I guess that's why we're
that
here.
Is where we are.
But in all of this, we know that your side has been engaging government. Just last week, we had reports that government was attempting to revise the rate at which they want to charge. We understand that government is considering 1.5%. These are some reports out there. You have a fair knowledge of how the negotiations and engagements are going on. Is the NDC open to the idea of a revised electronic transactions levy? Are you open to that idea?
You know what? At the risk of being sarcastic, I'll tell you that MPP's way of engaging, which they advertise, is to make sure that pick some NDC MPs, put trumped-up charges on them, and take them to court. Mr. Bagbin is a problem. Remove his military protection so that he will listen to good counsel and our levy will pass. That is the way MPP is engaging. And that can only lead to radicalization, because if you want us to discuss, we discuss not under the atmosphere of intimidation. We discuss with free minds. But you think that, well, let us threaten this man here, let us threaten that man here, and that, and then you are even attacking the moderates within our ranks. What do you think you are doing? You are radicalizing the rest. And even you are radicalizing the moderates. That is why you end up having, hardened positions which you cannot reconcile. So they still have not woken out of their dreams that they don't control what they claim they control. If they realize that, look, this is the end of our abilities, we need to engage and engage constructively and engage not with deception, but with absolute good faith, they will get proper engagement.
And that proper engagement will mean being open to the idea of having a revised e-levy.
We have suggested to them that this e-levy must be taken back and then repackaged, engage all those who needed to be engaged. If it will take you 6 months to reintroduce it, by that time, all this work would have been done and the nation would have built some consensus. Maybe during the engagement, you could have suggestions of another means of raising the same money. It can be discussed. But you shouldn't put it there and pushing it as if it's a do or die affair. This is what we are in government, this is what we want. Even when Parliament votes against the budget, you say that no, Parliament has not voted against the budget, let's go and reverse it. Why do you keep on revising the so-called approved budget?
But you told me that your priority...
If they had understood that, well, this budget has been defeated, let us go and repackage it. But you go and there's opportunity to look at the expenditure proposals and all the others, the e-levy itself and the way it has been packaged and all whatever is wrong with it can be corrected, you bring it back. We would have passed this in long ago. It's because, one, their insistence that, you know, we are we. So no retreat, no surrender. This is what we want and it must happen. We are in government. That is one attitude.
But you're telling us...
The second attitude is also that they are not trustworthy at this stage. There is a serious trust deficit. So there is nobody they will be engaging who will think that they mean what they are saying.
So even if they propose a revised policy, your suspicion is that they may not stay committed to whatever it is they're telling you.
But what have they stayed committed to? All the monies they started collecting. They say they are running, a democratic system. In which democracy would you call a minister to come and account for some government expenditure and he will face you and say that we are not going to account to anybody? In which jurisdiction would you have a president abandoning the state presidential jet and be hiring private jets? And then when Parliament calls for them to open up and account for the expenditure and so on and justify, they tell you that, look, when it comes to the comfort and security of president, monies don't matter, cost doesn't matter. We are not going to tell you anything.
Right.
And we are even preparing to buy a bigger jet.
Right.
If you are preparing to buy a bigger jet, then you should know that you cannot convince anybody that the nation is in any difficulty. You see, go and look at in all this difficulty, go and look at their projection for the monies that they will be spending on the presidency.
Right.
It has increased from last year. So why is it that if you are saying we are in difficulty, you are increasing
we need to we need to go. I'm grateful for your time.
A lot of things that can be cut.
But even as you go, we know
we'll be there.
But as you go, we know that the NDC is marking the commemorative event of the Ayasu West situation. Yeah. What's the party's message to your grassroots out there, and for the victims who are still having some concerns till date?
That's one of the issues that is not bringing consensus in this country. You say you are running a democracy. People have been shot and maimed. A commission has been formed. Implement the results. You say even those who have slapped a member of parliament and have admitted wrongdoing, you say they haven't done anything wrong. They should go. No punishment. Compensation you promised for victims, nothing is happening. Then you proceed from there to go to another election theater, shoot and kill 8 innocent persons. Nothing is happening to this day. And you say this is a government we should continue to provide resources for. This is a government we should continue to work for. I am communicating that crime does not have an expiry date. So we will continue to be on the side of the bereaved families. We will continue to be on the side of people who have been shot and maimed.
All right.
And pray that a day will come when we will exact accountability and make sure that we will restore whatever they have lost, apart from their lives. As for lives, the president himself has said we cannot restore them. But we must make sure that the nation is run very well. If you want more money, sack your ministers who are messing up with our money.
I'm grateful that you've been able to join us this afternoon. That's the General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asiedu-Nketia, sharing his thoughts on a number of issues. This e-levy issue is still continuing. There are debates all over it. The minority, as we understand, is still raising some more issues with it. Ningo Prampram MP Sam George is speaking now. We can take a listen to him explain his position on the matter.
Compensation that his own commission of inquiry says should be paid to Ghanaian citizens, but he has the money to be flying in private jets and buffing in the air. That is the interest of our president. He cares less about the people. But you see, whenever there is a dark cloud, because Almighty God is a fair God and a God of justice, in every dark cloud there is a silver lining. There is always a ray of hope. And the ray of hope for Ghanaians who have lost their lives or been injured thanks to the violence of the Akufo-Addo government is in the NDC under John Dramani Mahama. And I will show you why. If you take the NDC's People's Manifesto of 2020, and that for me was my joy, because in that manifesto, I saw what was my own opportunity, what was going to be my own salvation, and the salvation of all the other 8. And all the other people. If you have the NDC's People's Manifesto, go with me to page 116 of the manifesto. On page 116 of the manifesto, I just want to read exactly what is said in our manifesto. And that is the hope for you that you will get justice one day. And that's why I said, for those who think that they should wait. The day of justice is coming. On page 116, page 116 of the NDC's manifesto, under security, paragraph 10.11. The next NDC government will reopen an inquiry into the Ayawaso West Wuogon vigilante incident and secure justice for the victims. If I trust anyone to give us justice, to ensure that the people of this country get justice, it is the NDC. It is the NDC that will bring justice to the victims of Ayawaso West Wuogon. The man who benefited from the injustice, the man who benefited from the violence will never give us justice. But so long as God exists, all we pray is for long life. And he will set a table before us in the presence of our enemies, and our cup will surely run over. Dear comrades, I encourage you, stay strong. The journey has been tough, but there's a reason God did not allow them to triumph over us at Ayawaso West Wuogon. There's a reason God allowed you to live. It is for you to see the day of justice. And the day of justice beckons swiftly. It shall come. And on that day, let all who have been silent for the past 3 years remain silent. For justice will be served on a very cold dish in this country. Thank you very much.
Please, we are live on Pan-African.
Well, so what you see on the screens there are excerpts of the commemorative event which is happening within NEMA, being organized by the National Democratic Congress on the Ayawaso West Wuogon incident. But we'll take a short break on the Pulse. We'll return shortly. And you're welcome back to the Pulse. Workers of the Ghana Railway Company Limited are calling on President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to honor his promise of improving the living conditions, the General Secretary of the Railway Workers Union, Godwill Nama, made the call at the National Executive Council meeting of the union in Esikado in the second Takoradi metropolis in the Western region. There's more in the following report.
The General Secretary of the Railway Workers Union, Godwill Ntama, said President Akufo-Addo, responding to concerns on the poor conditions of most retired railway workers, blamed the meager salaries they receive, which translates low pension, and thereby promised to address the issues of salaries for the workers. But the situation, he says, is worsening.
On 19th August 2020, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, at this very premises, in response to concerns raised on the conditions of railway workers after pensions, did indicate that the deplorable pension life of railway workers was as a result of the very low level of salaries, and that he was going to address it. It is regrettable to note that the managing director of the company salary is just over 3,000, not to talk of the rest of the workers. This is a huge challenge and does not motivate workers to give up their best. In view of that, we would now appeal through the Honorable Minister, currently through the Chief Director, who's acting for the Minister, to the President as a way of a reminder that the situation has not changed and getting worse, and we plead that the issue is addressed for us.
At the meeting, which also deliberated on critical issues concerning the Ghana Railway Company Limited, Godwill Ntama called for the review of the Railway Act, Act 779, which he says has served its purpose after more than a decade.
We reiterate our call for a review of the Railway Act, Act 779, which has been in existence for more than 10 years and warrants a review. This act was put in place to regulate the railway sector when plans were in place to revamp the railway sector, and GRCL was not going to exist. Therefore, there was a need for an agency to take care of the assets and liabilities of the GRCL, among others. As we speak, GRCL is still a going concern without ownership of any asset, etc. And this is a great worry, and the need for a review of the act.
The Minister for Railways Development, Peter Amewu, in an address read on his behalf, noted that the construction of the Western Rail Line has progressed significantly.
Western Railway Line, where the development of the standard gauge commenced in 2018 with the construction of the 22-kilometer section from Koyoko to Manso with funding by the government of Ghana. This project has progressed significantly and is currently about 75% complete and is expected to be fully completed and handed over to the government by the contractor, Mrs. Amandi Holding Limited, before the end of 2022.
The acting managing director of the Ghana Railway Company, Lord Kwanzaa, reiterated the government's desire to revamp the railway sector. For Joy News, in Athalia Kwanzaa, Takoradi.
And I am Blessed Sogan here in Accra. Now, Ghana is enhancing security measures at its northern borders in the wake of military takeovers in neighboring Burkina Faso. President Akufo-Addo last Friday at an emergency meeting, high level, which was held in Accra, described the siege on President Kabori's administration as a threat to the peace and stability of West Africa. Already, personnel from ECOWAS and the United Nations are currently in Burkina Faso to assess the political situation there following the overthrow of the elected government. The development is already impacting as some 134 Burkinabe nationals have crossed into Ghana seeking asylum. President Akufo-Addo says steps must be taken to put an end to the increasing cases of military takeovers.
President of the Commission, Chairperson of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers, Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, ladies and gentlemen, I thank Your Excellencies once again for your participation in yet another extraordinary summit, albeit virtually, on a matter that has grave consequences for the peace and stability of our region, the crisis in Burkina Faso and its ramifications. The deteriorating political situation in our region should be a matter of great concern to all of us. No current country is insulated from its occurrence in the community, and we have to take action to nip it in the bud. We're confronted with a setback to our democracy, taking cognizance of the twin coup d'etat in Mali on 18th August 2020 and 24th May 2021, the one in Guinea on 5th September 2021, and now on 24th January 2022 in Burkina Faso. Added to this is the complex security environment occasioned by terrorist attacks and pandemics, presenting for us a toxic situation. Within this context, you may recall that in conformity with our ECOWAS Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance, adopted in 2001, the principles of constitutional conversion principles provide for the following. A, any accession to power must be through free, fair, and transparent elections. B, unconstitutional change is prohibited, as well as any undemocratic method of gaining or retaining power. C, zero tolerance for power obtained or maintained by unconstitutional means. And D, the armed forces must be apolitical and must be under the command of a legally constituted political authority. No serving member of the armed forces may seek to run for elective political office. Excellencies, the happenings in the region tell us that not everybody has accepted democracy as the preferred mode of governance. We still have some work to do to convince such people that we are all safer under democracies. The resurgence of coups d'etats in our region is in direct violation of our democratic tenets and represents a threat to peace, security, and stability in West Africa. This situation hinders the much-needed economic and social development of the region.
Well, so giving the concern of President Akufo-Addo, we've been trying to break the situation down for you and tell you more about military takeovers in the continent, that's Africa, starting all the way from 2020. Isaac Kofi joins me once more. Isaac, so let's start from August 2020. That's where it started from, right?
Exactly. So let's look at the period under review. So Mali was the first to start in August 2020. And, you know, Mali has had 2 coups in 2020 alone. The next was Chad in April. You remember Chad in April 2021?
And they had a very unique situation where the president, Idriss Deby, died in battle.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Due to the insurgency that was happening.
Yeah. So that was in Chad in 2021. And then we have Niger in March 2021. So in 2021 alone, we have, you know, the first one in April, you know, in March. We actually counted that of Chad because we see that of Mali as a failed coup. You know, it was Niger as a failed coup in 2021.
So before the incident in Chad, we had a similar situation happening in Niger, except that it did not take full effect.
Exactly. It was a
that was in March.
That was in March
of 2020.
Then right after that, it followed. You know, Chad followed in April 2021. And the next was Guinea in September 2021. So 2021 alone, we've counted 3 coups, you know, consecutively. Guinea was the next in September 2021, and Sudan in October 2021. Now, in 2022, we have, you know, Burkina Faso, just 24th of January, Burkina Faso also had their coup in 2022, as you are. So there were 4 successive coups in Africa in 2021. There have, haven't been that many in a single calendar since.
So that's the highest,
1991.
So that's the highest rate since 1999.
Exactly.
And if you look at most of these incidents, they're happening within the sub-region, which is West Africa.
Yeah. So we can count as many as 4. So out of the 6, 4 of these countries are from, West Africa.
West Africa. Well, Isaac, I'm grateful. Let's have some more conversation on this. Joining us now for this conversation is Adama Gaye, who is a security consultant, also former communications director of ECOWAS. Richard Kumado is also a security consultant as well. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. Let me start off with you, Adama. How is this latest development in Burkina Faso reaching you? What are the lessons that we could take from this so that other West African states could prevent another case of military takeovers?
Look, what happened in Burkina Faso was a tragedy waiting to happen because the president who was re-elected just 2 years ago, Mr. Marc Kabore, was somehow a lame duck president. He was not able to address the security challenges in the country, not able to reduce the casualties within the civilian population and in the military, and he was losing control of the security in Burkina Faso, to the point when the Burkinabés would topple in 2014 October, the former president, Blaise Compaoré, was somehow regretting him because when he was in charge of our country for 27 years, from 1987 to 2014, the country was somehow shelved from the tension that we have had in West Africa. Now, what is the problem is that Mr. Marc Kabore is a former participant to the leadership of Blaise leader. Once he saw the uprising of the population, but when he became president, he was not able to understand that these needs to fix security, bring about peace and stability, instead of just using the democratic umbrella to enjoy life for himself and his cohort of friends coming from West Africa, that this was no longer acceptable. Unfortunately, this was going to fall on him, and that's a follow-up to what happened in Chad, in Mali, in Guinea-Conakry.
So this is to suggest
there will be more military coup because the civilians are not delivering results. And it's not surprising, by the way, that we observe this resurgency of military coup now, because in 1999, when there was no military coup at the end, it was the moment when African countries met in Algiers during an OAU summit. I attended, and it was decided that military coup would be stopped to allow civilians to control in exchange of a better management of the countries, of democratic rule, of respect of law. This has not been the case, and of course, this allowed the military to come to power today.
So what you're predicting is that we may have more of such activities happen. But what's also unique about this trend of military takeovers is that there seems to be citizen support for the military junctures that we've seen. What's your take on this? What's accounting for that receding trust in democracy across West Africa?
I am not surprised. And to a certain extent, I may surprise you by telling you that I'm happy of this development. Because at the end of the day, if those who are in charge, the civilians, they turn out to be civilian coup makers, unconstitutional rulers, extending their stay in power and infringing on democratic rights. Myself, I am a political exile, despite coming from a country, Senegal, who used to be a truce. They don't want people to respect their right. As long as this continues, yes, it makes sense for the military to come and make a difference. We have seen that in the past, elsewhere in the world. Take the case of Portugal in 1974. The Portuguese took power and ended over a totalitarian regime, and that created the way forward for the peaceful democratic process that we see now in Portugal. We didn't want this to happen in West Africa because there have been efforts like the Protocol for Democracy in 2001. When I was at ECOWAS in 1992, we put in place what was called the Protocol on Democratic Principles.
Right.
On the basis of the Commonwealth's 1991 principles, but that has not been expected by the leaders.
I get the point you're raising. Let's also hear from Richard. The presidency here in Ghana has decided to beef up security up north. Already over 1,000 persons are reported to have crossed over. Richard, what's your take on this? What measures do we need to take to avert a spillover into Ghana? Well, it appears that we've lost Richard Kumado, but Adamagai, if you're still on with us, there are concerns and calls for a possible implementation of a cap on the term limits for West African leaders. It's part of the reasons why some experts believe we're seeing the military takeovers. What's your prescription on that?
This has to be respected. You cannot get access to power through democratic norms, the ballot box, and once you are there, you entrench yourself in power. Like it is said, one man, one vote, once. You don't allow anybody to defeat you electorally. No, it's not acceptable.
Well, Adamagai, it appears that we're still having some challenges with your line, but your point is well made. And that's how, of course, we'll wrap up now for you. Up next is sports. My name is Blessed Ogan. Don't forget to log on to myjoyonline.com. Well, and that's all time will allow us on the Pulse this afternoon with me, Blessed Sogan. We have more stories for you on our website, myjoyonline.com. And next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Stay with us.